Hey, this is Jason Bellamy at Builder Buddy. I'm going to go over a typical well inspection, and we do have another explainer video on an exceptional well system, or what we'd like to see, and then another one on one that is worse than typical. So this one kind of represents your average well system or well inspection report in our area here in Western North Carolina. So like all our reports, we have one category that goes over clearances, so the distance between the wellhead and anything that could potentially contaminate it, and grading, wellhead and housing, which is outdoors typically, and hopefully, and then we have the pressure system equipment, which is typically in the basement or crawl space, which includes the pressure tank and other components. And then we do 125-gallon well and pump performance tests, which we'll go into a little bit. So we have blue, orange, and red comments in our reports. This one only had 4 blue and 1 orange. So no red comments, nothing really failing at the time of inspection. Here's your county information to contact your county health department for questions regarding repairs or permits. Here, now we're in wellhead and housing. Your wellhead doesn't have very many components typically. It has the wellhead, which is this shaft here, typically 6 inches in diameter. You have your wiring going to your submersible pump. You have your water line, which is typically PVC, going between the wellhead and the house. Then you have some sort of enclosure, which in this case is a concrete cylinder. And then we need to see insulation. We like well insulation bags because they don't become moisture damage like this. They do have fiberglass bats, but they're encapsulated in a thicker plastic. Typically, a typical system in our area, they're just shoving fiberglass bats in that enclosure, and it just becomes moisture damage, nasty. It becomes nesting material for mice and rodents and other insects. And this fiberglass can potentially enter your water system because there are openings. There is a vent, which is a permanent opening in your wellhead, so that fiberglass can get into your water and potentially mold and other things. So there's another opening in your wellhead, which is where the wiring gets in. That should be sealed, and that is typically just a clear silicone caulk is the repair. You do want to have a well contractor do all these repairs, ideally. After 2009, in the state of North Carolina, every system that was installed after 2009 should have a well and a pump tag, which is just a metal plate that's stamped with information like the brand and model number of the pump, when it was installed, horsepower, and all that good information. The well tag has the installer information and depth of the well and yield. So because we don't have this information, there's a lot we don't know. We don't know how, we know using our sounder, we know how deep it is between the top of the wellhead and the water level if we have a good opening to use our sounder, which is not always the case. But we do not know beyond that water level, we do not know how deep that well is. We need to have this information here. We also don't know where that pump is, how deep that pump is. So if we see that water dropping dramatically, we don't know if it could potentially go below the pump and potentially burn that pump, because we don't want the pump pulling air rather than water. So this is good information, these tags. So we can't really give you a thorough picture of your system without these tags. So sometimes sellers have this information in a drawer somewhere, or occasionally the county has information, or if the seller knows the name of the installer, you can get that information. So pressure system equipment, there's your sediment filter. It looks pretty clear. I like the ones with clear casing so you can see the amount of sediment inside. Here is your pressure system equipment. So in this case, it's this blue tank. This is Well-X-Trol. That's good equipment. It's a metal tank. In this case, it was manufactured in 2003. I'm doing this video in 2022. So that is a 19-year-old system. These have like an 8 to 12 year life expectancy. This goes to show you how good of a brand product this is, that it's still functioning after 19 years. However, it could fail at any time, and it might, the bladder, which we can't see, might be failing now. Here's your pressure switch, which tells you when to tells the pump when to turn on and turn off. There's your main water shutoff. There's your pressure switch. There's your breaker. So these are just information items. So this pressure switch, which tells the pump when to turn on, turn off, over time the settings just sort of go off, and so that's why it's important for a well contractor to come every year and to just service the system and also add air to the pressure tank if needed. So the pressure switch needs adjusting. The pressure tank, it's more than 15 years old. It's 19 years old, and the tank pressure is low, which if it's a newer tank is just a servicing comment, but when it's older, it could mean that it's failing. And then the well and pump performance test, we simulate normal household use. Typically, most households, they use the most of their water in the morning after they wake up, and then when they come back from work after 5, they're taking showers, washing dishes, washing clothes, etc. So typical household use is around 250 gallons a day. So we do 125 gallons to simulate like morning use. We just want to make sure that your system can provide that water. And we use our sonar, which tells us where the water level is in the well. And so this is where it started. This is sort of the static water level, or where the happy place was for that well system, for that well shaft. And it started here, and as we're pulling water, so we're pulling 125 gallons, probably about 5 gallons a minute. Here we stop, and we're watching it recover, and it's recovering well. It's by the time we're done with this test, which is we're giving it a 10-minute recovery period, it's almost back to where it started. This is a good recovery. Sometimes it takes days for some systems to get back up to where they were. So we either want to see good recovery or we want to see good volume. So let's see what we have with this test. Well, we have really good recovery. We know that. But because we don't have the pump tag info, we don't know how much volume of water is available above the pump. So unfortunately, we can't give this information. And then the flow rate was good. So this is sort of a typical system where it is functioning. We're seeing some things that could go soon, like this pressure tank and assembly, which includes the pressure switch and the relief valve and sample port and pressure gauge. All those should be replaced at the same time. Right now in 2022, that's about a $2,000 repair. It is still functioning right now. We are recommending some upgrades, like another well bag that costs about $80. It should be sealed, not a big deal. A lot of these things can be done with a well contractor, just sort of a regular visit. So this is a typical well inspection.